This video seeks to help you organise your responses to questions about ethical debates. Let's remind ourselves of some of the ethical debates around people movement. The first, the rights of refugees, is often captured by discussion around Refugee Convention and the protocols around refugees. Questions about economic migrants relate to the movement of people between states, which often occurs for economic reasons, for employment. We have debates around people trafficking and asylum seekers, so we can see this ethical debate playing out in Australia as people are trafficked on boats, smuggled from Indonesia to Australia, people seeking asylum and protection. Our fourth ethical debate, resettlement, looks at how we resettle people who have been processed and approved as refugees, how this might then affect our border security. And finally, debates around what obligations we have to strangers, if any, and what impact this might have on our national interest. You'll notice with these ethical debates that the first two are different to the next three. The first two stand on their own. So what this means is you would need to, for example with the first one, the rights of refugees, you would need to discuss both perspectives. So we know a debate has two sides or two perspectives. If you were given one of these first two, you would need to talk about both sides of this particular debate. However, with the last three ethical debates, you can see that both sides are presented. So you could spend one half of your answer talking about the dangers of people trafficking, and the other half of your answer talking about the rights of asylum seekers or the issues of asylum seekers. Remember that if you get one of the bottom three ethical debates, you must talk about both sides of the debate. So you couldn't just focus on people trafficking and not spend half of your answer talking about asylum seekers. Let's review some of the key terms, and I'll leave these here for you to read on your own. Okay, let's look at how we might organise a response. So we have a typical question you're likely to receive. Explain, or in fact discuss, one ethical debate that has arisen in relation to the issue of people movement. And this is a question that's going to be worth 6 marks. Most questions you get around ethical debates are going to be worth quite a few marks, either 6, maybe even 8 marks. And that's because, of course, you have two sides of the debate that you'll need to discuss, so that's going to take some space. For this answer, we're going to focus on the ethical debates around the rights of refugees. And you can see straight away how I'm planning on getting my 6 marks. 3 marks are going to be on one side of the debate, why we need to protect the rights of refugees. The other 3 marks are going to be on the other side of the debate, so problems or limitations, obstacles to achieving or protecting the rights of refugees. So with the first 3 marks, I want to talk about why it's important to protect the rights of refugees. And it's here I might talk about the Refugee Convention. I might talk about the context, so the millions of refugees moving around the world. I want to link the issue to a theory. These questions around ethical debates are perfect to link to our theories: idealism, pragmatism, and realism. And you can use all 3 of those theories to discuss every possible ethical debate. So the second part of my response is going to be linked to a theory, and that link needs to be explained. And finally, I'm going to use one response from a global actor to further discuss this side of the debate. And there's going to be room for me to elaborate as much as I need to. Of course, the second half of my response is simply the other side of this debate. So instead of the first half, which looks at why we want to protect the rights of refugees, the second half of my response looks at obstacles to protecting the rights of refugees. So these obstacles might be the weaknesses of international law. These obstacles might be problems around national interest, sovereignty. It's going to be up to you to decide which single or which two obstacles make it the hardest for us to achieve the rights of refugees. Again, we want to link this to a theory, and preferably a different theory to the one we used above. And finally, where possible, again, use one response from a global actor to further discuss this side of the debate. So what might this look like? Well, here's an example of the actual content that I could use. So the issue is one around third agenda issues that cross borders, and here I would talk about many refugees around the world seeking protection. I would use idealism and ethics to discuss why we need to protect the rights of refugees. And thirdly, the response I would refer to would be Australia's response. And you can use Australia's response in two ways. You could simply refer to the fact that we have signed international laws that seek to protect the rights of refugees, or you could get more specific and talk about Australia's humanitarian and refugee program. Now, this would not be the place to criticise Australia's response, because of course this is, in a way, the positive side of this debate. So you'd want to talk about the good things that Australia has done, Australia's positive response that seeks to protect the rights of refugees. On the other side of this ethical debate, you'd talk about some of the limitations. One of them would be that states don't want to give up power over borders and migration. This links in perfectly to the theory of realism, and of course you can use security as well here. And finally, Indonesia's response fits in here with states that don't want to give up power because we know Indonesia hasn't signed international laws. So this would be more than enough content for me to get my 6 marks. If this question was to be worth 8 or 10 marks, let's presume it was worth 8 marks, I would simply elaborate further on Australia's response, and of course further on Indonesia's response, providing more explanation. If it was worth 10 marks, I would add an extra point here. So I would link UNHCR's response to Australia's, because both are examples of idealistic responses. And down here, I would also start to criticise Australia's response. So some of the ways that we seek to protect our borders, either through mandatory detention, Navy patrols in the north, or other limits on migration. A different option, so let's take the same question, but this one organises our response a little bit differently. The first 2 marks describe one side of the debate and link it to a theory. The next 2 marks focus on the other side of the debate and link it to a theory again. And obviously so far I haven't spoken about a global actor's response, and this is what I can do at the bottom here. I can describe one or more actors' responses to this issue and explain them in relation to either side or both sides of this debate. So in the case of Australia's response, I could talk about how it was an idealistic response, seeking to protect the rights of refugees up here. And then I could also talk about how it has features of pragmatism or realism, because we limit how many people we take in, and we have systems like mandatory detention. So there are 2 different options here, ways that you can organise a response in relation to any ethical debate question you might receive.